Is Cade Cunningham the most complete point guard in the entire NBA? I'm here to make the case. Let's talk about it right here. Top Title Entertainment. Let's go. What's good? Welcome to Top Title Entertainment. I am Eric Vincent, your host here for the evening, and I'm also the Detroit Pistons beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for tuning in and rocking in with me, because we got a serious question that we got to address here. The Detroit Pistons have been one of the best stories of the NBA, one of the most surprising teams of the entire league, sitting at a 20-19 record in the 8th seed of the Eastern Conference. Cade Cunningham playing at an absolute all-star level right now. And I can't help but wonder. I put this out on Twitter. You can follow me on my handle at I am Eric Vincent, because I wanted to wonder. I wanted to ask the question, and I'm going to put it out here now on my YouTube page. Is Cade Cunningham the most complete point guard in the entire NBA? Before I make the case, let's break down the definition of what I'm saying. I'm not saying Cade is the best point guard in the NBA. He's not the best point guard in the NBA. The best means you're factoring other things like resume and career achievements. All that factors in when you talk about who's the best of the best. So you can put other guys ahead of him like Luka Doncic. You can put SGA ahead of him. I'd understand that completely. I'm not here to argue that, and I'm not making the case that he's the best point guard in the league. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he the most complete. Terms of skill set, is he the most complete player at his position? And I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is yes. If you disagree, I 100% understand. Talk to me in the comments. I would love to hear your feedback. But I'm here to make the case that he is. Because from what we've seen from him, basically not even just this season, but his entire 4-year career with the Pistons, we have seen this guy work with a supporting cast that has been underwhelming, dysfunctional, and has gone through rocky periods where it's had to be fixed from ownership down. Whether it was Troy Weaver being let go and they had to bring in Trajan Langdon, having disagreements about who his starting head coach should be, because now he's at the point where he's on his 3rd head coach in 4 seasons. He went from Dwayne Casey, the travesty that happened with Monty Williams, and now he's finally found a head coach that I think is working beautifully with him in JB Bickerstaff. He's on his 3rd head coach at a 23-year age, and he is putting up career-high numbers across the board. 24 points a game, 9.5 assists, which is 3rd in the NBA, 6.5 rebounds a game. He's sitting here with 7 triple-doubles on the entire season. That's only behind Jokic and LeBron James, 2 other superstar NBA champion-level players and MVPs as well. And Cade is sitting here giving production that a lot of us really didn't expect to happen this quick. I thought Cade was special. I really thought he had the ability to become an all-NBA caliber level player. I even said when he was drafted that I think he could be an MVP caliber player. And based on what he's giving right now, it's hard to argue that. And what I'm talking about in terms of being a complete point guard, there are no holes in his game right now. There are areas that he can improve in, but there's nothing in terms of skill set wise that is becoming a detriment to his game or is holding the team back. I don't care what you say about the turnovers. His shooting efficiency is getting better. He's shooting, 46% from the field, 38% from 3, which is a career high. Same with his field goal percentage as well. We are seeing him dissect teams in ways that, again, we didn't expect to happen this fast. And in terms of what is around him, I think that is a huge reason to why he is looking like the best point guard in terms of what we see for the Pistons in, since the Chauncey Billups age. Cade Cunningham is putting on an unbelievable display where I, again, think he's the most complete point guard. He's giving you 100% effort on the defensive end, because if you look at how this team is assorted from Jaden Ivey, who's injured now. He just broke his leg, and he's probably going to be done for the season. He is Tim Hardaway Jr. as a small forward starting, Tobias Harris, and then Jalen Duren. That's his starting 5. But then since he's been gone, they've been filling in guys for Jaden Ivey's position to kind of make up for that. Asar Thompson just got back into the rotation of this team. He was out basically a good chunk of last season because of blood clots towards the end of the season. I think in March, I think he was diagnosed. So he missed basically from there until last season, until a little bit of the beginning of this season as well. So without Asar Thompson, who was clearly the team's best defender, Cade was looked at as the guy to have to not only be your floor general, your best scorer, one of your best rebounders, he also had to take on the responsibility of guarding the best shooting scoring option on the opposing team as well. And I'm not just talking about point guards either, because Cade is a 6'7" point guard, plays a 6'7", 230, where he's been had to match up against guys like Tyrese Maxey, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Trae Young. Like, he has matched up from 1 to 4 against just anybody that JB Bickerstaff has needed him to. He talked about that at the beginning of the year. I remember during media day, he said one of the things he wanted to emphasize with Cade in establishing the Detroit Pistons team identity was his ability to be a two-way player. Cade is not just a guy that plays offense and then you hide him off in the corner to where he doesn't have major responsibility to take on who the best scorer might be on the other team. No, he has to guard whoever their number one guy is as well. And he's doing a better job of guarding these guys without fouling. That's been a problem that he's had to deal with for the first couple years of his career. And now at this point, it doesn't really seem like that's been much of a problem. He's given great rim protection. He just had 2 blocks against the Raptors yesterday against Toronto. And we're seeing him give this kind of effort, again, with a shorthanded roster that has been inconsistent his entire career. And then even when you look at the help that he's gotten this season, you're seeing guys like Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris, and Tim Hardaway Jr. make a world of a difference for a guy like Cade Cunningham. And let's consider who these guys are. They're very talented and productive players that I think have done wonders for him. But Tobias Harris was laughed out of Philadelphia because they didn't think that he was worth the contract that he was getting with the Sixers. Malik Beasley, who's been a little streaky in his career, especially when he left the Lakers, where they were upset with him for not being able to hit three-pointers. And Tim Hardaway Jr. was kind of streaky as well when he was with the Mavericks. Now you bring him over with the Pistons, and these 3 guys all are having kind of a resurgence in their career. They're all playing at a different level that we are not used to seeing them play, especially for a guy like Tobias, who's in his 14th season, Tim Hardaway Jr., who's in his 12th season, if I'm not mistaken, and Beasley, who I think has played for like 4 or 5 teams, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been around, and a lot of these other guys have been looked at as cast-offs. Malik Beasley's only here on a 1-year deal. Tobias is here on a 2-year deal. And I think Tim Hardaway Jr. has an expiring 1-year contract as well. So these guys are not certified building block foundation pieces that they're going to be here for the long haul. They could be, but it's not a certainty that they're going to be. The Pistons are in a position where they're still trying to figure that out. Trajan Langdon and JB Bickerstaff talked about it. They said we want to work on development and building the foundation and the identity of this team. And in the process of doing that, they have expedited their processing at this point. They have played better than anybody has predicted. Cade Cunningham has done great enough stepping up against guys like Kevin Durant on the road against the Suns, against LeBron James on the road against the Lakers. I don't think he's played a bad game if you look at all of his numbers from top to bottom. He has played and been productive basically each game he's played in. That doesn't mean he doesn't have areas where he can improve. But again, in terms of being a complete player, that means there have to be areas where you may be a bit of a detriment. Like, there are some guards or some primary ball handlers who can't shoot. We saw that with Scotty Barnes. He's shooting, 28% from the field, and the Raptors look at him as their primary franchise guy. And he's a good player, but that part of his game can be looked at as a detriment if you're shooting 28% from 3. So when you look at Cade Cunningham, who is taking a leap, who is playing at an all-star level, an all-NBA type level, it's not crazy to think or label him as the most complete point guard in the NBA. So let's look at and compare some names around the league, because again, it's a deep talent of NBA point guards. And when you look at the majority of the guys that you compare Cade to, they're set up in completely different situations. Now, I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best point guard in basketball right now. What he's doing with Oklahoma City Thunder right now, playing at an MVP level, averaging over 30, shooting extremely efficient, doing a lot on the defensive end as well. If you want to call him the best point guard or the most complete in the game, I'm not mad at you for that. That's fine, and I understand that argument. But here's the difference between him and Cade Cunningham. Cade doesn't have a Jalen Williams that is sitting here averaging over 20. I know Chet Holmgren is hurt right now, but he was a consistent, productive player on offense and defense in his rookie year, coming off of that injury that he had in his first season. After that, when they got into the playoffs, he was impactful on both sides of the floor. The Pistons haven't had a guy like that who was able to stretch the floor as a shooter, get his own shot, and consistently protect the hoop at the same time. They have defenders. They have Jalen Duren, who's getting better, but he hasn't been as consistent as a guy like Chet Holmgren. That's no shade to Jalen Duren. I'm just saying what we've seen thus far. We also see a plethora of defenders who can help Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, so he doesn't always have to be their number one primary defender. When you have Jalen Williams, when you have Lou Dort, when you have Caruso when he's healthy, those guys are their primary defenders who take the responsibility away from Cade on being the number one defender. Cade doesn't have that luxury. Like, Jaden Ivey's not a better defender than Cade Cunningham. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a good defender in terms of taking charges, rotating, and helping with communication and playing passing lanes, but he's not a lockdown guy that can shut down the primary scorer of another team. He's a 6'4", 6'5", wing who gives you some versatility, and he gives you the intelligence of a veteran on how to defend. That's not necessarily the same thing as being a guy that's, physically built to guard, from 1 through 3, based on where he's at in his game. Like, that's just not who he is. And that's okay. But I'm just saying what he's assorted with compared to a guy like Cade Cunningham. Cade does not have the scoring help that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has. He doesn't have the defensive assistance that he has. He doesn't have the coaching assistance. He hasn't had the consistent front office assistance. Like, that has all been a merry-go-round of changing parts through Cade's entire career. That has not been any kind of consistency for him. And he just signed a 5-year max extension. Even with that, he was still just coming off of a 14-68 season where they had a 28-game losing streak because Monty Williams didn't know how to do proper rotations, because he didn't know how to properly use Jaden Ivey, because he said, hey, I can keep Killian Hayes and make that work. That was a suffering to Cade's game. Because of that, he was getting double and triple teamed constantly. Now they don't have the ability and the luxury of doing that because Cade has shooters around him who are taking advantage of that. He now has a coach that knows how to use spacing. He understands how to get guys in their proper spots, to get action on offense in the half-court sets, to make sure they can get open looks. He knows how to get them in their proper spaces on defense so they can create turnovers and play fast break offense to get them easy looks as well. That wasn't happening with the Pistons under Monty Williams. It wasn't happening under Dwayne Casey. That consistency and that production just has not been there. And you can make the same case for SGA for any other point guard that you want to put out there. Name one. Luka Doncic, same thing. He has Kyrie Irving as his running mate, a superstar, one of the most creative point guards we've seen in NBA history. Dame Lillard has Giannis, who's probably the best player in basketball right now next to Jokic. Like, who else do you want to put in the discussion? Jalen Brunson has 2 other all-stars with him in Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns. And he has a great collection of role players around him too, and guys like Josh Hart and others as well. It's just not the same thing. And again, those guys that we are mentioning, they have been building this chemistry with Cade Cunningham for a while now. Or not with Cade Cunningham, excuse me. They've been building this consistency with their core for a while now. Cade, every single season, has had to deal with Jaden Ivey not being there because he's hurt or because Cade is hurt. He's had to deal with Asar being gone because of his health, because of blood clots, because of, undisclosed illnesses and things of that sort. Like, these are all issues that he's had to deal with. Jalen Duren has spent a lot of time being out of the lineup because he's had ankle injuries, so he loses his lob threat for about 20 games that we've seen. There have been a lot of things that Cade has had to adjust to, and he's still one of the best playmakers in all of basketball. So I'm wondering if you put any of these other pieces on the Detroit Pistons, and I'm not even talking about young players, I'm talking about the point guards that we've talked about and dealt with. Would these guys be able to be as productive as Cade has been in the same scenario? I have my doubts about that. I strongly have my doubts. I'm not so certain that's the case. When you look at how these guys are playing, when you look at the way Cade has been able to adjust, stay professional, and still just roll with the punches to be the franchise guy, he has exceeded expectations, even if winning hasn't come along with it. We just heard Anthony Edwards complain about getting double teamed and having to pass the ball because he's getting blitzed more than he would like to. Now, granted, I understand that can be frustrating. You lose Karl Anthony Towns. You're losing a lot of your offensive support. You're in a different position where you're not just going out there to be a bucket getter. You now have to help your teammates and play make for them and put them in positions where they can be productive as well. Now, you're feeling what Cade Cunningham's had to deal with. Raptors fans are complaining about the exact same thing with Scotty Barnes at this very moment. You see Scotty not having the same kind of support when you're the number one guy, and then you're not just impacting winning when you have Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet next to you. Now, again, it's not about impacting winning. You have to lead winning. You have to be the guy to put everybody else in position to be productive and bring wins along with it. Because I remember, Raptors fans, I heard all y'all on social media. I remember them conversations where you were saying, well, Cade is just a high volume scorer. If Scotty was in his position, he would do the same thing. He would get the Pistons more wins. He would lift them up in a higher position in the East. And now look at y'all. Can't even scrape past 8 wins at this point. Because that's what happens when you take away your best resources, or when you get drafted to a position that doesn't have NBA champion talent around you. You don't have Nick Nurse to lean on at this point. Now you got another new coach. You got more supporting cast of new pieces that he has to work with and get used to, and he's struggling. He may not be struggling, but the team certainly is. And that's what happens. The first few years of Cade Cunningham's career, where he had to work with guys like Killian Hayes as his backcourt mate, you're seeing that now in Toronto, how Scotty Barnes has to adjust and deal with that. So the degree of difficulty for Cade with his lack of spacing, the lack of care and attention to detail in some of the coaches that he's had to deal with, the roster talent around him, the inability to provide the proper roster construction for him. Like, Troy Weaver didn't get him the guys he needed. He got him a bunch of guys on 1-year make-or-break deals that were project-type players like Marvin Bagley and James Wiseman. And he brought them along after you already drafted Jalen Duren, which prohibits and limits his ability to develop. So that's what I'm saying. All these guys here, it's easy to say, well, I mean, their numbers look this way, and they're winning and doing this, so Cade can't be a more complete player than them. Yes, he can. Because we're just talking about talent right now. We're talking about talent and production. And Cade has not had another star player next to him like all these other guys that I've named. He hasn't had a Giannis to go with him like Dame Lillard. He doesn't have Mikal Bridges or Karl Anthony Towns to go with him to help take to the playoffs. He doesn't have guys like that. The only other guy that I would kind of put in the same position as a Cade Cunningham that's finding ways to be productive is LaMelo Ball. Somebody I have high respect for. I love what he's doing in Charlotte, and I'm not going to knock him and, kill him for the winning or the lack of winning that they've done in Charlotte, because I don't like this argument of the impact of winning. His team is not good right now. It's a bunch of young guys. They don't have a lot of star, proven veteran scorers that can help lift them in a position to be a better team in terms of winning. And we're just now seeing that turnaround with Cade Cunningham. And the guys that were able to help him, who again, Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris, and Tim Hardaway Jr. None of those guys are considered stars. They're good players, they're very productive, and they're very helpful in their role with this team, but none of them are stars. The best complimentary player that Cade Cunningham has had in his entire career is Jeremy Grant, and he let him go after his first season. Jaden Ivey was asserting himself and proving himself to be the proven number 2 next to Cade, and then he broke his leg playing against the Orlando Magic. So now he got to adjust to that. And even without Jaden Ivey, where teams are still blitzing Cade more, putting extra attention to Cade Cunningham, he's still finding a way to be a triple-double machine. He's still finding ways to be productive in terms of a playmaker. Like, to me, I said that Cade has LeBron-like responsibility to this team. Now, what I mean by that is teams look at Cade and say, look, Cade, We don't really have a whole lot of proven scores next to you, so we need you to be our #1 guy. All right, cool, coach, I got you. By the way, Cade, we also need you to help play make and put them in the proper position to score so they can knock down open shots. All right, cool, no problem, I can do that. Hey, one more thing, Cade, look, we kind of need some help on the glass as well. We're still a little limited right now. We got Duren, we got Beef Stew, we got Asar, but, they're a little inconsistent and they're still trying to figure out their way, so we need you to help out as well with that. Okay, cool, I got you. Oh, by the way, Cade, we also need you to play defense and lock up on the #1 option for the other team, too. We need you to be able to, help give us some assistance with that because we're still kind of limited in that area as well. Okay, no problem, I got you. He doesn't have an area, the Pistons don't have an area of the team where they will be able to take Cade away and they would still be able to be productive without him. They live and breathe on everything that Cade Cunningham does, at least at this moment right now. There were areas where Jaden Ivey was able to kind of lean and be maybe their leading scorer in some games, but it's no question the most important piece to the Detroit Pistons right now in this rebuild and this winning stretch that they're going on is Cade Cunningham because he's the most complete point guard in basketball. I truly believe that. I really do. I'm not trying to gas up because, it's Detroit all day. I'm not doing that. I don't need to do that. Look, listen, I don't need to push this agenda if I didn't believe it. I'm just happy the Pistons got a draft pick right. We've seen this team, this franchise, screw up draft pick after draft pick after draft pick since Darko Milicic. I was there for those days. I was right there watching Carmelo Anthony and D Wade and Chris Bosh and all this plethora of generational talent just go right by while we settled for Darko, or picked up guys like Stanley Johnson or Luke Kennard while letting let Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell and all these other proven guys go somewhere else and thrive and flourish. So I'm just happy the Pistons have gotten a pick right. They found their franchise guy, and at this point in his career, again, I knew he was worth the selection. He's the best player of the 2021 draft class. That's not a debate anymore. I don't care what y'all say. You can argue in the comments if you want. It's being proven right now before your eyes. But at this point, with what we've seen with Cade Cunningham, with what he's had to deal with in his career, with the lack of support that's been consistently afforded to him, he is the most complete point guard in basketball right now. That doesn't mean he's the best point guard in basketball. He's the most complete in terms of what his skill set is. And I think you're seeing it right in front of you right now. But talk to me. If I'm tripping, tell me why I'm tripping. I don't believe it's too much. I don't think I'm gassing it, but I would really love to hear from you. Talk to me in the comment section. Make sure you like the video as well. Subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and run them numbers up. I'd love to hit over 500 subscribers by the end of 2025. And with your support, I would really love to make that happen. Talk to me in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I'll be checking in with more Piston games. Again, you can check out my work at clutchpoints.com as well as the Detroit Pistons exclusive beat writer. I would love to hear from you. I would really appreciate your support. Thank you for tuning in right here on Top Title Entertainment. I am Eric Vincent, and I'll holla at you soon. Peace.